You are standing at the meat counter. You have a good piece of beef in your hand. A nice steak, marbled, tender looking. You turn it over and you see the price. $14, $16 for one meal, for one family, once. And beside it, on the lower shelf, is the cheap beef, the tough cut, the stew meat, the bottom round, the chuck, $2, maybe $3. You look at it and you already know how it will turn out. Chewy, tough, like leather, like something you must fight with your teeth. So you sigh and you put it back and you reach for the expensive one, because plainly, that is what you have been taught. That tender meat costs money, and cheap meat is punishment. Now let me show you my kitchen. In my kitchen, that $2 piece of tough beef does not stay tough. In my kitchen, with one white powder you already have in your cupboard, a powder that costs a few pennies, that same cheap, chewy beef becomes soft, tender, silky. It slices like a knife through butter, and it melts in your mouth like the expensive cut you left behind at the store. Plainly, we take the $2 meat, and we make it eat like the $16 meat. And the secret is not a machine, not a marinade you buy in a bottle. It is baking soda, the same box that sits in the back of your refrigerator right now. My name is Kenji Takara. I am 81 years old, and I live in Okinawa, in the warm south of Japan. I have lived a long life, and I have never in that life been a rich man. Beside me, as always, is my wife, Yuki. She is 78. Her hands are the hands that taught me this. And she did not learn it from a chef or a book. She learned it as a young woman from the Chinese cooks and the old aunties in the market, in years when meat was precious, and every family bought the cheapest, toughest cuts and had to make them good. Her mother, Ayeko, did the same before her. This is not a modern trick from the internet. This is 100 years old, from the kitchens of people who had no money and could not afford to waste a single tough scrap. Today, plainly, I hand it to you. In the next 25 minutes, I am going to teach you this method fully. I will explain the real science, why baking soda does what it does to meat, at the level of the muscle itself, so you truly understand it and never fear it. I will give you the exact amounts, the exact times, because too much or too long will ruin it, and I will keep you from that mistake. I will walk you through the method, step by step, with the signs to watch for. I will tell you honestly what can go wrong, and I will show you the real money, how much this one habit can save a family in a single year. Because, let me say it plainly, the price of tender meat is a kind of trap. You have been taught that softness must be bought, that the only way to a good piece of beef is to pay for the expensive cut. And so, week after week, families pass over the cheap meat, good meat, honest meat, just tough, and pay double, triple for the tender cut instead. A family that eats beef twice a week, choosing the $15 cut over the $3 cut, spends over $1,000 a year on tenderness alone. $1,000 for something a few cents of baking soda can give you. That is money, carried to the store, because no one ever taught you the old kitchen secret that would set you free from it. In Japan, we have a word for the shame of that waste. Mottainai, the deep feeling that everything has value, and to throw away a good cheap cut of meat because you were never taught to cook it, that is a waste that should sting a little. Today, we fix it. Before we go on, one small thing, and then I will not mention it again. Yuki and I have gathered these old methods, the tenderizing, the stretching of cheap meat, all of it, into a book at kenjitakara.com for anyone who wishes to keep them together in one place. That is all I will say of it. It waits there if you want it. Now, let us begin. So let me give you the first principle, the one idea everything rests upon, and then I will show you the whole method, step by step. Why is cheap meat tough? It is tough because it comes from the hard-working muscles of the animal, the legs, the shoulder, the parts that moved all day. Those muscles are full of tough proteins, packed tight, and when they cook, they seize up and squeeze out their water, and they turn hard and dry. That is the chewiness you know. Now, baking soda does something clever to that meat, something almost magical, but entirely real. It changes the surface of the meat chemically so that those proteins can no longer clamp together so tightly when they cook. They stay relaxed, they hold their water, and so the meat that should have turned to leather turns tender and juicy instead. That is the whole secret in one breath. But the amount matters. The time matters. Too much baking soda, or too long, and you trade tough meat for a strange, soapy, mushy mess. And I will make very sure that does not happen to you. Stay with me. I will show you exactly how it is done. Now let me explain the science, plainly, the way Yuki explained it to me the first time I doubted her and thought she was ruining good meat. To understand why baking soda works, you must first understand why meat gets tough when it cooks. Meat is muscle, and muscle is made of long fibers, bundles of protein. When you heat those proteins, they tighten, they contract, and they coil up, and as they coil, they squeeze, they push the water out from between the fibers, the same way you wring water from a wet cloth. That squeezed out water is your juice, gone, and the tightened, coiled proteins are firm and hard. That is toughness. That is the leather you fight with your teeth, and the tougher cuts, the cheap ones, from the working muscles, have more of these fibers and more connective tissue holding them, so they seize up harder and drier than a tender cut ever would. Now, here is what baking soda does, and it is real chemistry, not a trick. Baking soda is an alkaline substance, the opposite of an acid. When you rub it onto the surface of the meat, it raises the pH of that surface. It makes the meat more alkaline, and when the meat is more alkaline, two things happen. First, the proteins on the surface gain a kind of electrical charge that makes them push away from each other, instead of clamping tightly together. They cannot bond and seize the way they normally would. So when the heat comes, they stay loose. They stay relaxed. Second, that raised pH helps the meat hold on to its water instead of squeezing it out. More water held means more juice, means tender instead of dry. So the baking soda does not dissolve the meat, and it does not cook it. It simply changes the chemistry of the surface, so the meat cannot turn tough. This method has a name in the Chinese kitchen, where it was perfected. They call it velveting, because the meat comes out smooth and soft like velvet. And in stir-fry restaurants all over the world, this is exactly why the beef is always so impossibly tender. Now you know their secret. Let me be clear about one honest thing before we go further. Baking soda works best on meat that is cut into thin slices or small pieces, the kind you would use for a stir-fry, or strips, or ground meat. This is because the baking soda works on the surface, so the more surface there is, the better it works. It can be used on a larger piece, But for the everyday cook, saving money on cheap beef for a quick meal, thin slices are where this shines the brightest. That is the honest scope of it. I will not oversell you. Now, the materials. Very little, as always. You need your beef. The cheap, tough cut is exactly what we want here. This is the whole point. Bottom round, top round, chuck, flank, skirt, the stew meat, the stir-fry strips, the $2, $3 meat. Do not use this on an expensive tender steak. It does not need it, and you would waste the effect. You need baking soda. Plain baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, not baking powder, which is a different thing with acid mixed in. Baking soda, the same box you may already have. You need water and a bowl and a little time. That is all. Now the amounts, and please listen closely, because this is the one place people fail. The rule is roughly 1 teaspoon of baking soda for every 12 ounces. That is, for every 3/4 of a pound of thinly sliced beef. Plainly, about 1 teaspoon per pound is a safe, good measure. That is not much. It should not be much. More is not better here. More is worse. Too much baking soda and the meat will taste soapy, metallic, strange, and the texture goes past tender into a soft, mushy, unpleasant thing. So measure it. Do not pour it in by eye. 1 teaspoon per pound of thin sliced beef. Write it on your hand. Now the method. Step by step. Listen to each one. Step 1. Slice your beef thin. Against the grain, this matters. Look at the meat and you will see lines running through it, the direction of the fibers. That is the grain. Cut across those lines, not along them, so you are cutting the long, tough fibers into short pieces, thin slices, against the grain. This alone makes meat more tender, before the baking soda even touches it. Yuki slices it about as thick as a coin, sometimes thinner, her knife moving slow and sure. Step 2. Put the sliced beef in a bowl and sprinkle the baking soda over it. Your measured amount, 1 teaspoon per pound. Then add just a little water, a tablespoon or 2, and toss it all with your hands until every piece is coated and the baking soda has dissolved and spread evenly. You want a thin, even coating on all the meat, not dry powder in clumps. Step 3. Now you wait. And here is the second place people fail. The time. For thin slices, 15 minutes is good. 30 minutes is the most you should go for thin pieces. Do not leave it for hours, thinking more time means more tender. It does not. Past a certain point, the baking soda works too far, and the texture turns wrong, and the soapy taste creeps in. 15 to 30 minutes for thin sliced beef. Set a timer if you must. Yuki, after all these years, simply knows by the clock in her head, but you should use a timer until it lives in your hands too. Step 4. And this step is not optional. Do not ever skip it. Rinse the beef. After the time is up, take the meat to the sink and rinse it well under cool running water, tossing it with your fingers for a good 30 seconds or a minute until all the baking soda is washed away. This is critical. If you leave the baking soda on, that is when you taste soap. That is when it goes wrong. Rinse it thoroughly. Then pat it dry with a clean towel or paper, as dry as you can get it, because wet meat will not brown. It will only steam. Step 5. Now cook it as you normally would, but hot and fast is best for these thin slices. A screaming hot pan, a little oil, and the beef goes in and sears quickly. Because you have velveted it, it will not seize and toughen. It will stay soft. It will brown on the outside and stay tender and juicy inside. Stir-fry it with vegetables, with a little soy sauce, with garlic and ginger. 20 minutes ago, this was $2 leather. Now watch it. Now taste it. And the signs that it worked. When you cook it, the beef should feel different. It browns but stays soft. It does not curl up hard and gray the way tough meat does. And when you bite it, it gives easily. It is tender, almost silken, with no fight in it. That smooth, soft, yielding bite, that is velveting. That is the sign of success. If it is faintly soapy, you used too much or did not rinse enough. Next time, less soda, better rinse. If it is mushy, you left it too long. Next time, less time. The method forgives you. It just teaches you as you go. Now, a small thing Yuki and I have done for many years. We keep a little kitchen notebook, the cut of meat, how much soda, how long, how it turned out. Cheap experiments, written down, become your own private cookbook of what works with the meat your own store sells. That template is in the resource at kenjitakara.com if you would like it, but truly, a scrap of paper and a pencil by the stove does the very same job. The writing down is the thing, not the paper. Now the honest scope. What can go wrong, plainly, so you are never caught out? The first mistake, too much baking soda. This gives a soapy, bitter, metallic taste and a slippery, unpleasant texture. The fix is simple. Measure 1 teaspoon per pound of thin beef. No more. The second mistake, too much time. Leaving it far past 30 minutes, especially on thin slices, overworks the surface and turns it mushy and off-tasting. The fix? Watch the clock. 15 to 30 minutes for thin slices. The third mistake? Not rinsing. This is the most common failure of all. If you do not rinse the baking soda off thoroughly before cooking, you will taste it, and it will not be good. Rinse well, every time. No exceptions. And a word on safety and honesty, plainly. Baking soda is food safe. It is in your bread, your cookies, your kitchen, every day. Used in these small amounts and rinsed off, it is completely safe to eat. There is no danger in the method itself. The only real caution is for those who must watch their sodium very closely. People on a strict low-salt diet for their heart or their blood pressure. Baking soda is a sodium. Most of it rinses away, but some remains. If your doctor has you counting every milligram of sodium, know that this adds a little and speak with them. For everyone else, plainly, it is safe and it is fine. And one more honest thing, this method makes tough meat tender, but it does not add flavor. That is your job, the soy, the garlic, the ginger, the salt, the sear. The baking soda handles the texture. You handle the taste. Now matani, total use, nothing wasted. Because this method is matani at its very heart. Think of what it truly does. It takes the cut of meat that people pass over, the cheap and the tough, the meat that a wasteful world overlooks, and it makes it good. It makes it worthy. It rescues the humble cut from being second best. That is respect for the value of everything. And it goes further. That tough beef you can now cook well, stretch it. A little tender beef goes a long way in a stir-fry full of vegetables over a big pot of rice. 1 pound of $2 beef, velveted and stir-fried with cabbage and onion and carrot, feeds a whole family, where one expensive steak would feed one person. The trimmings, the bones if there are any, go into a pot for broth. Nothing thrown away. The cheap cut, fully used, fully honored, feeds more people for less money than the expensive cut ever could. That is the old way. That is Matainai. And the method continues itself once it is in your hands. Every trip to the store, you will now look at the cheap meat differently. Not as punishment, but as opportunity. The tough cut is no longer your enemy. It is your friend. And that changes how you shop, forever. Now, the money. Let us count it plainly, because this is where you see what the old secret is truly worth. A tender cut of beef, a good steak, a tenderloin, runs plainly $12, $15, sometimes $18 a pound. The tough cut, the chuck, the round, the stew meat runs $2, $3, maybe $4 a pound. That is a difference of $10 or more for every single pound. Now, a family that eats beef twice a week uses, say, 2 pounds a week. If you switch from the $15 cut to the $3 cut and make it just as tender, you save $12 a pound, $24 that week. Over a year, 52 weeks, that is over $1,200 saved. $1,200 from a box of baking soda that costs $1 and lasts for months. Even if you only do this once a week, even if your saving is half that, you are still keeping $500–600 a year in your pocket. Real money, your money, for a few cents of powder and 15 minutes of waiting. So here is your task for this weekend. Just one thing. On your next trip to the store, walk past the expensive beef and buy one package of the cheap tough cut, the stir-fry meat, or a piece you slice thin yourself. 1 teaspoon of baking soda per pound. A little water. 15 minutes. Rinse it well. Pat it dry. Then sear it hot in a pan with a little oil and soy sauce. Taste it. That one small experiment this weekend will change how you see the meat counter for the rest of your life. Do not try to do everything. Just do this one thing. 1 package of cheap beef. See for yourself. And then tell me in the comments, what did your mother or your grandmother do to stretch a little meat or to make a cheap cut good in the days when money was tight? A marinade? A slow braise? A trick with the tough cuts? Those old kitchen secrets are being forgotten, and this, right here, is where we can remember them together. Write it down. Share it. Let us gather the old wisdom, all of us, before it is lost for good. And next time, Yuki and I are going to show you how we take that same cheap cut of beef and turn it, slowly, into a broth so rich and deep that it becomes the base for a whole week of meals. The old way of making one small piece of meat feed a family for days. If you wish to learn it, stay with us, subscribe, and walk this quiet old road beside us. Let me leave you, as always, with the whole method in a single sentence. Slice it thin against the grain. Coat it lightly with baking soda for 15 minutes. Rinse it clean, and the $2 beef will eat like the $16 cut.